underwater is beautiful.
You have made it really tough for me.
So, guess what, Sabra? I went swimming, just like I told Sammat I was going to. I ended up doing it. Got myself a little tan, but it's all right.
Okay, well, we are actually going to talk about like the importance of curiosity today with our guest, Eddie. Very warm welcome to you to Seriously. Eddie is the UNICEF's representative to the Maldives.
I'm really pleased to be part of this conversation, in particular to appreciate the work that you do and to contribute to it. UNICEF is here for every child. In February, when I was appointed as the UNICEF representative to the Maldives, I thought I was coming on holiday. I had read a lot about Maldives, not disappointed. Very beautiful country. The island architecture continued to amaze me. And so, and at least when you read the books and the documents, your child indicators are so good. This country has done a great job in advancing the children's agenda. And there's so much to celebrate. So I thought I was coming on holiday. I think this country has done a good job in telling its story. There's no question about that. Globally, Maldives is well positioned. Maldives is known for climate change, but it has not removed the existential threat that the country is facing. Maldives must be part of the global movement because climate knows no boundaries. Rising sea levels is not because of something you do. I've been to the islands and I see plastic in the oceans. They've been washed to different islands, but it's also part of a global movement. And that combination is what we need because the moment we lose the fight on climate, we lose the fight on the population. Human induced climate change is happening to us. And for us, it's a child rights crisis.
Do you think, like, because you've traveled around Maldives quite a bit now, do you think young people or even their kind of guardians and grown-ups understand it in that way?
Compared to where I've come from, the level of understanding in this country is massive. There's a lot of stress. The young people speak about climate change. So in that regard, I think the effect of climate change is appreciated in Maldives. And it doesn't happen accidentally. It's because of what you, the government and other partners have been doing. You've done a great job to increase awareness. What we need to do is to move things to the next level where we are inspiring more and more people to act.
So, you did mention that Maldives in itself is doing good for itself, but we need help from the other countries as well. You said others, you didn't specify other countries. So, what kind of help do you think Maldives should get or rely on?
To 1.5 degrees Celsius, it's not going to be due to Maldives. Maldives is too small for that. It requires global action. It requires actions from net producers of carbon. It requires action from even those who are not producing enough.
No matter what we do in the Maldives in terms of emissions, it's not going to affect the overall global kind of, but how we talk about it globally and how we kind of urge others who are in a position to act more matters. And I think that's kind of where I really see space for young people, especially is that if we can get more Maldivian voices out onto the global stage to say, this is exactly why we need to hold it to 1.5. It's more powerful. I mean, I think it's always more powerful to have that kind of personal
and actually
story.
move it to the next level beyond the why, to say what we are doing that can be replicated elsewhere, and how we are doing it. Because I believe that Maldives has got the solutions that can be globalized. And you being empowered to talk about it is really the way to go. So we move from why to what to how. Maldives, for me, is a country where we can create solutions. And we are creating solutions, but we need to amplify those solutions.
How do you, I mean, I agree with you about you can create the space, but we got a really good question yesterday in one of the panel discussions at the conference about how do we actually prepare young people for the kind of for sustainability and for the skills and for climate action. And obviously climate education and vocational skills are necessary, but like how do you kind of envision that we do that in a more kind of institutionalized way?
As you know, there's a lot of talk. We believe that if you've got 20 young people and each of them does something, committing them to action, co-creating solutions. And then we as UNICEF, we are ready to catalyze those actions. So there might be times that we'll provide some grants. There might be times that we would bring them together to implement those actions. Like as we speak today, these young people are the ones who are writing the outcome documents. We provide them with support. Action is needed, but we also have to catalyze it. So that's the first pathway that deals with young people. We need to bring education closer to communities so that, for example, the science that is done in education is linked to the pH, the acidity of the ocean.
Yeah. So use the environment around you to teach.
Excellent. We need to look at that space, greening, etc. But we need to bring education closer to community. And in Maldives, it's about what is happening in islands. And that is something we are committed to as part of the transformative work. We need to be intentional about mixing young people and older people. For the older people, they begin to see a new way of doing things. For the younger people, they begin to learn. Because unless we can nurture them, unless we can mentor them, regretfully, they will not grow. And young people might not agree, but we will have to create that platform for that.
So what I want to ask is, ever since you moved here, is there any specific memorable experience you've had, maybe while traveling to the islands?
Every beach I've been to has got plastics all over. And the question I've always asked is, why? And there are two things that keep on coming up. Most of them say that about 10% is generated in the islands and 90% is washed ashore. So each time we have to remember that whatever you do in an island, you need others. So even though we are an island, we are not islands unto ourselves. The second, so that is something that makes me appreciate the government policy on single-use plastics, against single-use plastics. But more importantly, makes me also appreciate government's work to advocate for climate action globally.
Well, I mean, the plastic one is actually a really kind of favorite example or a policy that I think Minister Shauna and I quite often use to highlight how it came about, because it wasn't a policy that came from government just like that. It started in schools, and then students and children, young people began to talk about it in their homes. There were competitions in schools about how much plastic, single-use plastic, you could collect, and that meant all the families got involved, and they had to collect plastic and contribute to their child's like school experience. And it became an issue which kind of got highlighted at the policy level and eventually led to the plastic phase out committee and the single-use plastic ban. And And I think we recognized even while doing the policy that it's not an easy task to kind of ban plastic when it's so much a part of everyday life, especially. But that without cutting out plastic, that you can't simply recycle your way out of the problem. There has to be some form of reduction in our consumption as well.
Really illustrates the power of young people. But it also reinforces what we believe in as UNICEF, that the intergenerational bit always leads to something better. And it's excellent that you listened. You know, as a climate envoy, I'm sure you have a lot of solutions on your mind, but you listen to young people. And we as duty bearers and as leaders must open up that space to listen to them. Because when we listen to them, we learn and we make a difference. You need global action around that, and you need each country to do its bit, because the action, the plastics that end up in the ocean get washed to your shores.
Right. Yes.
So that's why the global action and the global advocacy is as important as local action.
Eddie, the UN has a lot of jargon and different treaties and plans, and I mean, some of it I don't think it's easy for everyone to understand or access, but I mean, it's the first. I only recently heard about is it General Comment 26? Could you explain that a little bit?
Yes. If you go look at the, now I have to also be careful not to increase the jargons, but the CRC, yeah, the Child Rights Convention, has been coming out with what we call general comments to try and make aspects of the convention clearer to countries. And the idea is to help with the interpretation, and as well as the responsibilities of what we call state parties, countries, to be able to implement them. General Comment 26 is one of those comments, and it's just about the environmental rights of young people. It's about the right of a young person to live in a safe and a healthy environment. And I think is one of the creative things that we have done. It's important. When I started my work as a young medical officer, I thought it's only about health education. But in a place like Maldives, where you've made so much progress in health and in education, you are dealing with the more complex things, like what people eat, what environment they live in, how NCDs, but and also how to continuously achieve social cohesion, balance development and environment. You're dealing with very difficult, challenging things. And then environmental issue is one of the most difficult and challenging things, because for a long time the environment has been a dump. We have never invested in looking after the environment. General Comment 26 is about making sure that we see the environment as a child rights issue. But more importantly, we look after the environment.
A lot of young people are going to be listening to this, I hope. So, my question to you is, if you could pass on a message or any piece of advice to them right now, what would you say?
Inaction is the biggest disease. So I ask every young person to do one thing to look after their environment. Because if each of us does one thing, can you imagine the cumulative effect in the whole world? So move away from inaction and act on at least one thing. That's my message.
Well, Eddie, we are very happy that you decided to join us today, and we have learned a lot.
What I appreciate most about UNICEF and also the work that you do is that you bring people together, and like I have met so many young people through my kind of work, with UNICEF, especially very like incredible young Maldivians who are doing so many creative things and coming up with um, practical solutions to meet the climate issues in their communities, and it's really inspiring, and also gives you a way to kind of support those initiatives more, and really connect to those communities in a way. So thank you for that. And thanks for coming today.
We should do one thing and do it well. If we all did that, the world would be different. And for us in UNICEF, we are here for every child. What we want so much through the work that we do is to have young people that care about their environment and themselves. We should have young people that are competitive and are ready to transform this country and take it to the next level. The beauty that we see now did not happen by accident. They should take Maldives to the next level. And lastly, we want young people that commit to action. That's why we are here as UNICEF, and we really appreciate the partnerships that we have with you in particular. Thank you for having me.
Shaiman, welcome to Seriously. Seriously, aqui UNICEF aqui que bava podcast gas what a walk the kani climate change behavior on the kina the zuano climate action get area boda bavit Iguta, you are our Zuana.
Thank you for inviting me to this Seriously podcast. Actually, it's my first time in a podcast.
Like, why are you interested in climate change?
It actually started with, like me having conversation with just a friend, okay? And like when I was talking to my friend, I like actually figured out that I actually have quite a lot of interests, and like I could be a really much of a people person if I try to be one. And that's how my goal, I like how my work started. It was like really like a work on myself, which I did like when I was staying at home and I was studying online for my bachelor's at that time. So it kind of started like that, and we kept talking, and also at the same time I started, listening to a lot of people's like talks, like kind of podcasts, but actually not podcasts. And also read some of the articles and some of the books, and also like when I was doing this economics course and all, like, and it was like really involving me with like making me interested with these policies, and like it started creating an interest at that point. Like it all was happening at the same time, and like then I was like, let me just like get out and like start talking with people so that like I would know like how things is actually happening, because like behind the closed doors you know nothing. Like when you come out you see so many things, you hear from people, and like every day is like a learning experience for me.
Mangrove restoration ಆಗ್ತಾ
So mangrove restoration they planted trees like which are native to mangrove, and Kurdufushi Miharu along airport ke fence carrying we have a new road kind of reclaimed, but it's like a new road veliyalafa hadafa. So mangrove are native plants. Mangrove ga hama indu mga masakke kori again there, because like that's like the first step of like a mangrove restoration, because to bring back the nativeness of it. It feels like it hurts actually to me, like to see the mangrove like this today. Like you stand on one side of the mangrove and you see a, what do you call it, a white sandy road. It feels like you are looking at a beach with the mangrove water. Like when I used to look at my childhood pics, like I would be standing there and like I could see Duru Dura like mangrove. It used to be such a scene. Like the last time we saw it was 2017 and we're not gonna see that again. It's like really sad. And that was also the time when people actually started realizing the real worth of the mangrove, when it was about to be lost. Really sad. And also to note that it's like the only mashikule in Maldives. And also it's like historically linked with Kordofushega Kule, Idu Kulivaraka with the mashi and all. We have Idu Kulivar like which is done on Boduid Alha Iduge Devanaduahu Hama Komme Ideges Kule. This is called Mashimali Parade and like Kulim Mashi Nagageng, Hama Mashi Hakageng, Dani. Then Mashimali Parade Gavahaga de Kije, it's like related with our culture. Hamani Bunja Kodu Foot Bunajam Hama Mashimali Parade Gavahaka Nanham. Then it have also become really trendy with Ahendra Rashugas Mihar for Devaraka. Then Hamayaki Kavarang noticeable becoming a kimi Ronosha Mihunge Dirulumanga Badalta. So my mama side uge mama ves, bappa side uge mama ves. De mama and kiwes hama Ron washa demihu. Then I bappa side mama mania one them ves hama Ron washi. Then mama side mama adunege buri. Hama Ron washa demi haru ves kommes varak. Ekamako kuriga Ron washi varakanu washa. Then mama then fahun hama Ron washun pudere kamadu kollang uleni. Then en eruga hama algun me meet kore mi Ron washa mi hunna. Kama Ron washa mi hunna ke ga wakim bevi baddadu me. Vara bava Ron washa mi hunna. Emi hunga hama vara baro complaint ke ves hore. Pun hama alumna vara fahage kame ekem hunga amdaniya vara bodeti balta ke ngakaman ebe fulun faha kore. Then hama ya kega ebe fulun faha kore kamen eki zuano eda hairang ebbe shawgweri kamen nebba haka ves. Masaketta kurani hama kura muskole deba umur furage mi hunne. Astuga zuanung masakettere and unikunna nyameki nete mundane masakate. Eki varang bavar step take ekulegen vara bura masakate astuga. Kuli hikkima vara bodba hikka feot. Eruga kuli hikkam wegen olta ves negi. Vara bavar mi hunge olta emi hunden fahun geag bombita genes bombitan ukalanchi hunima derai wahakea vara bura masakketake koggen kurikame wahama lolun karunala fasabba mihun kede vara derave wahakado ha ham bombitan ekka halakuwan hedima den ukalan because geag genes ka no betten den ebba mihun hambore bore gea eka etchiga den bombi fa koggen ulun wahaka den miharu ebe fulun eba request kure and alonan hiwa gotu land dakka fwani be from fenga me bone kule me bone bombi fa kurang ala ma fal yeah like restoration got and also like hama ane bombi fa kurang hama concrete message taken hadaka waha ke deke bone e duwahu then also hama opinions and him opinions de no kunne ves madu yutun kole ekamuko echi ves kiyane hama yutu al hama wara bunan echi kiya yutun kare gam hen uleda කිවේ නයි ඒරුක ඒ තරංගස් කෙනවන එකමකු සන්නම්මාන නුහේ ඒරට නුහේ එමිහුණගේ වරු වෙස් බුණවෙන් ඒ මස්තුග හගීගතුග ඒකොස කොන්සල්ටන්සි එච්චහිත භාවන් හෙදීම දාම්වාන ගොස්ස දෙන් ඉතුර කියා එච්ච කියම් because like if you don't go and then say things it's like literally you missed out one big step of it.
Now, a bit earlier you did mention that your background is in economics and
management.
So Mihar, using that knowledge, how do you think we can take about a sustainable way to improve the whole aid?
So we actually studied some modules also like regarding sustainability and all. We also studied a module like really one module fully focused on sustainable business, and we actually talked about like how customers like nowadays are choosing towards more sustainable businesses. And Rajya guess me sustainable ko hinga businesses tak madunna me seba fene ufavere manzar. And I hope to see hama egota sustainable businesses Korea mundata. And also hama AI kega ඒකි අනහැම් බොනය කස්ටමර්ස් වෙස් ඒක රෝලෙන් ඔන්නාන එච්ච අනේ ප්‍රොඩක්ට චූස් කරම කෝරෙන් සස්ටේනබිලිටි ඒකි සස්ටේනබලි හාවස්ට කොර ප්‍රොඩක්් එතනුන සස්ටමෙන්කෝ සස්ටේනබල් කොන් ෆෙද්දි ෆර ප්‍රොඩක්් එතෝ හුර හැච බලා හද ඒක මානය කියදෙක් හගිකතුග රාජ්‍යක තිබි මිහුණ සැබ ජෙහේ මෙසේජ් ෆෝර කොද්දෙන් that sustainable products ang ahulu veriwan asluga haram ei kure vidane kame kure vene kame hama ek followers base bodeti audience ta bodeti hama farata kon hama kuram wara rangalu kamen eiki
How would you advise Ryan to get involved
Yeah. How would you advise me?
what I have been just doing the last week is something really cool you could take part in. It was like really hama wara public ang open ko gen hulwale fursate meki COP28 ke this mock COP e rajya ga bebo hama followed with a youth conference. I think like ekal opportunity tang ai ma eka opportunity ta ge beno hefuma ki wara muhimmu kamek kanne.
So how do we get them? Because not everyone is going to have a friend like yours who got you into it, you know. So Meher, how do we reach out to them? How do we get them? How do we hold their hand and bring them out and get them to work for this?
I hope that like the youth who actually listen to this might actually learn and get an inspiration from this. I really hope for that. That's gonna be like one of my greatest achievements from this podcast. Like if even one of the youth actually gets this message and become a volunteer, the youth today need to actually talk to those elder people, learn the lesson from them. They actually need to even like we have been talking about climate change the whole week. So what are the differences they see today and now? That might just trigger that spark for you to like really get involved in this climate change work. Kuriga kankan hi gotaka nunca miharu kankan mihinga niki. Ehemvema asluga bunanya ekamummas filawal dibiganegen climate change miki wakamekan astuga gina yutuna gadis wara gabudu purammas undawkame because they get policy level also like you see sometimes like we talk about beach erosion and we start building an airport. We talk about beach erosion and like we do something like that and like ekahala kankam vati vestu they keep neglecting it. They be like we still have more time or we are gonna go abroad. Ekahagotaka vahakas hunnane. Astuga vara visnan je kame meke. Because if you do research, like if we don't change our lifestyles and if we don't work towards this climate change mitigation and all, we would no longer be there till 2100 maybe. Maldives would be underwater. It's like literally now or never.
Have you noticed that Kuri episode ke dekhi mainu that you need to sit around with your family and talk about climate change?
Yes.
It's exactly what Shaiman said. So I think we're gonna have to do that.
I already started. Like I talked to him, and the first thing I told them was, "Let's talk about it."
Yeah. How
Yeah.
did that go?
It didn't go.
Friends got a vahaka dakkan cheyane astuga.
Thank you, Varaboda, for coming on to Seriously.
Yeah.
I've actually learned a lot about Kurudufushi, mangrove restoration, and aslu mugakata dakkairo. Ega iha faseha kamer nunca miki eki mihun get beliefs eki mihun get needs eki gamiti mikakanta takuri.
Yeah.
So I think you really helped to kind of put it into perspective.
Yeah.
And thank you for inviting me for this great show.
Yeah. We've had fun.
And for this really fun time.
Great, though. People gonna laugh like this.
Yeah. It sounds so sarcastic.
No, for real. Like, I'm not being sarcastic.
Seriously, you think it's great, though.
Really, it's really lovely.
Okay.
It was clear to me that this isn't right and I needed to make a change. But let's be honest, back then I was just a 12-year-old. And 12-year-olds may not be able to change the world overnight. But we sure and most definitely can change our world, our own habits, our beliefs, and our values. Many would say, what difference does that make? It's such a small thing, we'll be fine. I can't do that, that'll be too big of an inconvenience. It may seem like an inconvenience, but if you really think about it, it's not an inconvenience when you realize that you may as well be trading your home for it. It's not an inconvenience to use a reusable bag when shopping when you realize that damaged plastic bags are doing to the environment. It's not an inconvenience to hold on to a piece of trash that you may have found till you find a proper way to dispose of it when you realize that it's killing our planet, that damage it's doing. We need to change our mindset from it's an inconvenience to it's a chance to make a change.